Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the General Society of Mechanics and Tradesmen. For those of you not familiar with our organization, we're a nonprofit educational and cultural organization which has a tuition-free school that's been in existence since 1858, and we have programs for people in the building trades. We run one of the 3 remaining private libraries in New York City, and that's where you are in this evening. We also have a nearly 200-year-old lecture series, and the General Society's home is this 1891 building that is on the National Register of Historic Places. So I welcome all of you, and we are here for a very happy occasion. So I thought a lot about introducing the man standing next to me, and once you start reading about him and looking at bios and all of that, you realize that some people are very hard to summarize, and our speaker would be one of them. So it is truly a man who needs no introduction. He is a renowned structural engineer, educator, and mentor. As he writes in his book, "My mantra has been passion, persistence, and flexibility. Without these convictions in life, we won't make it." And anyone who knows Charlie, our speaker this evening, is that he lives a life with commitment to excellence, and he has excelled with whatever he takes on. Among his many awards and distinctions, I was particularly drawn to the Hoover Medal he received for his distinguished public service. One of his endorsers, as I read the bio, this interested me, wrote, "I have found Charlie's remarkable can-do attitude, his willingness to take risks, to make this world a better place for our children, to be contagious. As he once said to me, 'What? You haven't made a mistake this week? Sounds like you haven't been taking on enough challenges.'" So, amen. Amen. In writing, one talks about finding your voice. Well, in this book, there is no question whose voice that is. Charlie's voice is loud and clear. You could hear Charlie throughout the whole way, and the rhythm of those words never missed a beat. This is a book that needed to be written. The book is inspirational and motivational and teaches important principles of success and tells the story of a singularly unique life. But wait, the most important thing was Charlie Thornton is the son of Charles and Evelyn Thornton. He first, from 252 Leland Avenue in the Clawson Point section of the Bronx in New York City. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is where his journey begins. Thank you, Charlie.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Vicki. Before you leave tonight, I want everybody to go up there and see the picture of my father. Excuse me? Go up and take a look at the picture of my father. My father got kicked out of grammar school in the Bronx when he was 13. He told me he was an incorrigible juvenile delinquent. He was just taking chemistry and science and mathematics and algebra, and he loved it. Except he was an orphan, and he didn't have a father. And as I grew up, I realized that the world of people and children need a father and a mother. And I had the best, and he's upstairs. He's in that picture. Take a look at him, okay? I want Amy Blades Stewart to come up here. This book, the cover, was designed by her son, Connor Dorbin, an ACE student in Easton, Maryland, where I live. Look at that cover. ACE is fabulous. So I'm here to talk about a lot of things, about Richard Tomasetti and Dick Anderson and Robert Selsom and all these fabulous people. And I can't mention everybody named Massimillo. I knew you would all come out if I did a book signing here. I knew you would come here. George Leventis, I knew you would come. Because if you spend your life developing a great relationship with people, don't leave. you win. And Richard and I, if you read this book, you're going to realize that it was Richard Tomasetti and Charlie Thornton who went to Manhattan College together, and we won. How many people now, Richard? 850? We won. We won. You know why? Ethics, honesty, Manhattan College, and all the apple pie and stuff you want to hear about, okay? You win, okay? So Amy and I wrote this book. Why did we write the book? And we're going to tell you how you write a book, okay? You buy Dragon Speaking, Dictation Speaking, software, Dragon Speaking. I dictated the book. And if you read the book, the first 2 pages, it was Charlie Thornton talking to me. Because when you dictate a book, it's about a conversation between me and my colleague and the reader. You're going to see it if you haven't read the book. And Richard and I grew a great company because we trusted each other. And we brought in the best and the brightest from Manhattan College. Roxanne, are you here? Roxanne Donovan was coming. Tom Scarangello, the now chairman of Thornton Tomasetti, and you all know him. He's in California with his kids. But Tom Scarangello was in my class in 1979. And we grew the company by hiring the best and the brightest from Manhattan College, Cooper Union, Princeton, Catholic U, whatever. It was all about teaching. Excuse me? Oh, well, we have a bunch of those guys. That's Al Schroeder, one of the smartest mechanical engineers I've ever worked with. And Al, thanks for coming. But Amy, I just want, you all should write a book because Richard and I grew a company, and over the last 10 years, people said, when are you gonna write the book? And I said, I'm gonna write the book. But I don't know how to write a book, but I bought Dragon Speaking for the 3rd time. The first time I used Dragon Speaking, it was with Dennis Poon, who's now vice chairman of Thornton Tomasetti. Didn't quite work. Steve Dennis, who was our in-house general counsel, Richard, and it worked for him. Didn't work for me with my Bronx accent, but they kept perfecting it. And let me tell you something. I have everybody in my community, my immediate community, using Dragon Speaking because your emails are now easy. You don't have to type them. So Amy, tell them what it was like to work with Charlie.
Well, if you know Charlie, you know it's like trying to catch a fly. He's everywhere. So I knew he was traveling, and when he asked me to write the book, and there's a little story to that. We met after he was on the Today Show. Jane Pauley actually interviewed Charlie. Some of you may have seen it on the ACE Mentor program. And Charlie, an editor where I live in Maryland, said we really need to tell this story about Charlie Thornton. He'd come to live in Easton, Maryland, and the ACE program was taking off down there. So I went over and met him, wrote the story, and we kind of enjoyed meeting one another, and that was the end of that. And about 4 months later, I was sitting on the beach on vacation with my husband, and I looked at my phone, and it had Charlie Thornton's name on it, and there was... he speaks in an engineering voice all the time, very short and to the point. And it said, I am home, will you write my book? And I said to my husband, I really think this is spam. I don't think Charlie, first of all, why would he want me to write his book? I've just met him and we just did this story, but it was real. And my husband said, give him a call. So the rest is history. We got together and I had never written a book, so he took a huge chance, and I'm very grateful, as he is with many people in this room. He gives a lot of people chances, and I appreciated that.
Where is Eric? Where's Amy's husband? There's Amy's husband back there. See him back there? So as Richard Tomasetti knows, in the book we talk about Mr. Deliberate, that's Mr. Tomasetti, and Mr. Impetuous, that's Charlie Thornton. I send Amy an email. Will you write my book? What's so wrong with that? So she says, do you think this guy's for real? And guess what? I was. And Robert knows me. Robert Selsom knows me. You gotta make decisions. You can read the last chapter of the book. It's called Risk. And risk is an opportunity. And there's a lot of risks that Richard and I took, that I took with Carolyn, my wife. Carolyn, please stand up. I'm going to embarrass you. She's standing back there. And my daughters, Diana and Kathy, stand up. They're all in the book, whether they wanted to be or not. But I really want to spend time on Q&A with the audience. You should write a book. Come on, you can do it with electronic devices. I can sit down in 15 minutes and dictate 10 pages of single-spaced dictation on a subject that I want to talk about. Do it. Dragon speaking, premier, it's cheap. Do it. I mean, come on. Stop typing. Typing is passé, okay? So are there any questions? I just want to get this interactive because this is a friendly audience.
I mean, it's great that you put out the book and appreciate that with Dragon Speak, but having it available in different formats, in other words, just having it, thank you, having it available besides the printed format, having it available in an MP3, you know, for those people that prefer that, they could just listen to it while they're commuting and make it more accessible, your ideas.
Okay, so I'm going to answer the first part of the question. It's on Kindle. It's in softcover. And I don't understand this. If you want a hardcover book, you have to buy it through me. Okay? And the whole cost of doing the book from Amazon was under $900. The whole deal. And they were fabulous. Amy, talk about it.
Well, I think one of the things Charlie wanted to do, and he doesn't give himself enough credit, so I'm going to toot his horn because he won't. Maybe it'll get him talking about himself. The ACE program. Charlie, his heart for this book really was not only to tell his story and inspire others, but the reason for us writing this book was to benefit the ACE program and scholarships for students. And there are 1,000 kids around this country that are part of that program. So self-publishing is what gave us that opportunity. And we had neither one ever done it before. So like Charlie, he just says, just do it. Every day before the book was published, the quote I used in the beginning of the book was from Winston Churchill, and it ends with just slay the dragon and fling him to the public. So that's what was in my inbox every morning before the book was published, just slay the dragon and fling him to the public. But I like your idea of getting it so that people could listen as well. So,
No, it's absolutely affordable if you have $900. And if you have a real story to tell, do it. I mean, I'm looking out at the audience, and, you know, George Leventis from Langen could tell a historic story. Robert Selsom from Boston Properties could tell a story. Robert took over Salvadori Center for me when I left here in 2000. And we need to grow workforce. We need to grow people in this industry. And what the General Society of Mechanics and Tradesmen does, that people that don't realize it, this is really a group of tradesmen. I mean, it's leathersmiths and silversmiths and sculptors. And Vicki, you can come up here and talk about all the stuff that they do. But my father, his most happy day in life was when he got into General Society after he graduated in 1927. Okay, and he became a member of the General Society, and I was about 21, Richard. We were in college, and he said, I just got into the General Society of Mechanics and Tradesmen. I said, what's that? He said, that's where I graduated in 27. And Charlie De Benedettis was in his class, which I never knew. Richard knows Charlie De Benedettis. Within 7 years, he was president of the General Society. He forced, wasn't a choice, he forced me and my brother Bill and my brother Robert to become members. And I got on the school committee, and I got involved in this whole thing. And I realized that this was an organization that was taking minority and underprivileged, underrepresented people from the industry of the New York entity and getting them jobs. And that's what my father did. So that was part of the reason I started ACE. And everybody in this room that knows me is probably involved in ACE and Salvadori, whether you want to be. So, I mean, this whole thing, this room we're sitting in, was the genesis of ACE, and I'll say, in my case, the success of Thornton Tomasetti. Questions? Do we have job openings? Talk to Richard Tomasetti. He's still involved.
Can you tell us a little bit about your coming of age and how you decided to enter into the engineering field?
Absolutely. It's in the book, but I'll reiterate it. At 14, my father was a bricklayer, and he took me out for 2 weeks, and we worked on an A&P in the East Bronx, and I laid brick in 96-degree heat. I was backing up behind the journeyman bricklayers, and then at 15, I became a carpenter's apprentice on a little bank on Union Square, or you see it there, it's right, that nice little bank with the columns. And then at 16, I was on a high-rise building walking high steel. And at 17, I was on a tunnel job with Crimmins. Remember Crimmins? Okay? And everybody on the project was told by Dad, bust his ass so he stays in school. And Amy has outtakes from my dictation, and they're hilarious. Okay? Lev Zeppelin always came out Led Zeppelin. I couldn't get it. Lake Winnipesaukee came out Lake Winnipesaukee. What was the other one? Busted ass?
The higher Thornton Tomasetti was, that was a good one.
No, higher Thornton?
Higher Thornton Tomasetti.
She took all these dictations, some of which I spent a lot of time editing, and some of which I didn't. I don't know what I said, but it came out acetylene. It might have been Zetlin. Anyway, it's a classic device, but it's getting better. But anyway, to answer your question, my father said the key to success, which is the mission of the General Society of Mechanics and Tradesmen and Mechanics Institute, is education. You ain't gonna make it unless you're educated. ACE won the STEM award in Washington 3 years ago. I went down and got an empty envelope because of sequester from Mr. Obama. He shook my hands. The goddamn frigging envelope was empty. It took us 5 months to get collected. But the fact of the matter is, the other 17 winners of the STEM $25,000 scholarships were all non-industry supported. They were all supported by government, some kind of a thing. There was one from Stanford University, one from Northwestern, and everybody in the audience came up to me afterwards and said, how the hell did you ever start an organization that's funded by the industry? Because we are not seeing any possibility of staying next year. Salvadori is sustainable. General Society, obviously, 1789 is sustainable. So we as an industry, we need to rise up and support. Richard's involved in the academy schools, right, Richard? Still? Yeah. Right? Urban Assembly. It's a fabulous program. I mean, these groups need our support. You're still involved with Salvadori, right, Robert? Absolutely. So I'm proud of what we've accomplished, not only at ACE, and everybody said to me, when are you gonna write the book? So I met Amy and I said, I'm writing the book. Questions? Richard.
did you learn about yourself when you started to prepare the book?
You know, as an engineer, I was well trained. And with a partner like Richard Tomasetti and Tom Scarangello, we could attain anything that we wanted to do. We could do anything. We could do anything. World's tallest buildings, et cetera. Writing the book was an interesting experience because running a nonprofit like ACE, you know, where everybody's on the board and it's a real democracy, not a benevolent dictatorship, was an eye-opening experience. And remember when we moved ACE from New York to Washington? Remember what I had to put up with you and the New York ACE board? So writing the book kind of gelled the whole thing about what did I do? What did I accomplish? And it made me think about it. It made me think about honesty and ethics, Tomasetti, the people that I dealt with. I mean, we could not have ever developed Thornton Tomasetti to 27 offices around the world unless Richard Tomasetti and I trusted each other. And that's in the book. And so it kind of forced me to sort of write it. We had talked about it ad nauseum. I mean, we had meetings, we probably engineered the greatest ownership transition in the history of engineering firms. And I'm proud to say that I was an advisor to Langen. George, wake up. I helped George and David, right? And it's hard to transition engineering firms. And if you read the book and you check the 15 steps to success, the biggest problem in companies in the construction industry is nepotism. And we had a serious anti-nepotism agreement in our company. None of the senior principals, the partners, their kids were not welcome. I'm sorry. Summer job's fine. You bring the kids in, it's over. Sorry. And I have strong conversations with Tom Gilbane every week. Charlie, what do you mean? Gilbane's all family. I said, well, okay, you must have a much better family than most other people. Tom Gilbane's a great guy. He's now chairman of ACE. He's chairman of ACE. He's a fabulous guy. But, you know, nepotism will kill every company. Any other questions?
Tell us about how your love for the open sea developed.
You're going to read about my exploits on the East River in my Boston whaler. And there's somebody who's the guy who had a Boston whaler in City Island? Still here? Here you go. No, a lineman. I'm sorry, a lineman. My father taught me, learn how to do what you need to do and then do it well. And he encouraged us to just go out. And so we went out of Clawson Point in the Bronx on our 15-foot lineman with a 50 horsepower Johnson. And we went down to Richard Tomasetti land in Sheepshead Bay. And we went down with our girlfriends when we were 16, 17, 18. We went down through New York Harbor and we went for soft ice cream. Stupid. We came back up the East River heading east through Hellgate. No light, dark, tankers. Okay. Vicky enjoyed all that. And we almost died. But you know something? We knew what we were doing. And my father, at least we thought we did. So one night I'm coming back up the East River with two linemen, and my friend John Kovac is with his girlfriend, and I don't know who had it in my boat. My wife's here, I can't say, but no. It was just a friend. And we pass a tanker right off the Hellgate Bridge, Okay, and I come out the other end, and we're heading back past LaGuardia, and no John, no other boat. He's missing. I go back to Clawson Point to the Bronx Corinthian Yacht Club, and I wake my parents up, and I said, we lost John Kovac tonight. He's somewhere down in East River. And we launched the boats, and we really knew what we were doing, Robert, to answer your question. We understood boating. My father taught us everything. We took all the safe boating courses. John Kovac and his girlfriend were hanging out on the northern end of Roosevelt Island. They were anchored, and they did not want to be discovered. We found him. There was a glint on his chrome on the lineman. This is all in the book, by the way. And man, did his father get pissed. So anyway, but we grew up. I didn't start sailing till my first wife died. I went sailing with Diana and Kathy, and we went off sailing on a boat. And I called this guy, Bill Farr, from Fairwind Yachts in Greenport. And I said, I want to charter the biggest boat you have. He said, it's a Pearson 35. He said, have you ever sailed anything like that? I said, no, I have a Grumman sailing canoe. He said, if you can sail that, you can sail anything. That was the beginning. And in some of Robert Selsom's quotes in the media, I got you into big boat sailing. You did? Yeah, it's fabulous. And everybody, everybody in the industry in New York and Annapolis has been sailing with me on my boats. It was our business development. And Nick Bellotti recently from Turner International, he said, you know, Charlie, I got to tell you this story. You and Richard invited me on Enticer. Remember Enticer? It was a Trumpy 85, and I was so honored. It was 80 people on a Trumpy out of Stamford, Connecticut. Filet mignon, Chateaubriand, fabulous food, fabulous drinks, great parties. And I got back to the office the next day, and the chairman of Turner said, how the hell did you get invited and I didn't? So, you want to play golf and entertain your clients with golf? Great, but if you're a lousy golfer, don't do it. I'm a great sailor. We had great times, Richard. And they were all in the book, all the sailing stuff. Bob Nielsen lives down in Maryland, a retired president of Turner International. He said, Charlie, this is the best. He said this at an ACE-NAC meeting in Chicago last year. This is the best book on business development I've ever read. Because what it does is it tells a story. There's no magic about business development. It's called being there. Remember Charlie Cogswell? Brigadier General Charles Cogswell, we hired to run our Washington office in '72. He said, Charlie, there's no magic. You want government work? You have to be here. And Richard Tomasetti and Joe Zuliani and I spent a lot of time during the Arab oil embargo in Washington, remember? Got to be there. Other questions?
Charlie, you certainly have shown a willingness to take risk and be courageous and bold and take initiatives. Beware what you wish for, you might get it. Did you ever get something and actually right after, professionally, whether a big job, a big design project, once you got it, actually had a little bit of butterfly to say, it's going to be a challenge?
Well, let me give you some advice that I learned from an interesting guy named Mitch Mailman. Does anybody know Mitch Mailman? He said, Charlie, you stay in business because of the jobs you lose. And that's a conversation that's been had by a lot of people. If you're chasing a job and it looks like it's not the job you want to do, it's not the project with a great client, and certain people in this industry, when they give you the job at the lowest fee, they want the A-team, turn it down and stay in business because of the job you lose. I mean, and that's what we did, okay? And 2 Liberty Place is an example in Philadelphia, okay? We did 1 Liberty Place, 65 stories, great building. It led to Comcast 1, Comcast 2. We didn't get to Liberty Place. They went to a Canadian firm. It was the same situation we have right now. The dollar went south, or the Canadian dollar went south, and we turned it down. It ended up in a $55 million litigation, and we were the expert witnesses for the design team, and we got them out. We got them out of the suit, and Liberty Property ended up paying $55 million to Beck because they were the wrong contractor on the wrong job. So you got to get out. If the job stinks, get out. Right, Richard? I'm looking for... Right, George? I'm picking on my inner circle up here. They planted them here. Next.
Thank you, sir. You've written a very good book. I believe I haven't read it yet. I'm Len Anderson. I've done journalism, and I'm kind of scared of your dragon speak because I've done an awful lot of taking 10 pages and making it a page off to the editor. Would you comment on that, sir? I'll say again slowly. You do dragon speak, and me, I've done scribble, and then I've gone it off to the
I'm
editor.
having trouble hearing him.
I will say again slowly and try to be more clear. I've done journalism. I have not used dragon speak. I have gone there, taken 10 pages of scribble, and got it to the editor with 1 page of into the email.
I asked Amy driving up today, I said, Amy's a professional writer. She now uses dragon speaking. I said, have you done any comparisons between the efficacy of using regular writing, typing, writing, and dragon speak? And she said she hadn't. But my lawyer is using it, and I can knock out 9 pages of single-spaced stuff. Now, it may not be journalism, but it's stuff that my clients need in 15 minutes on DragonSpeak. And Richard knows that I use dictation on, I could sit down on a 20-page technical report, and I used the Frank Marino approach, which was you dictate the whole report with no information from your team that's doing all the technical calculations. And it goes like this. The blank of the blank, when mixed with the blank, when added to the blank, adds to blank, okay? And then the team starts adding it in, okay? Because most architects, in my experience, can't write. Most engineers can't write, okay? And the only way you get it going is you dictate the report, and it ultimately becomes prose, whether you like it or not. That's my answer. Technical reports are not journalism.
Charlie, in terms of time management, because your 24-hour day, with what you accomplished, I remember reading in the book that when your daughter Becky was small and would take 45-minute naps, you would do 45-minute paintings. So then Charlie's also an artist. So in terms of now, with the infiltration of email and handhelds and all of that, do you have any thoughts about time management during the day?
The only thing I'd say is that the whole 24-hour day is now invaded by people who expect instant answers, right? And you put up with it, and I'm in hiding right now. I'm in New York, and there's a whole bunch of people who want to talk to me. I'll get back to them tomorrow. They can wait, you know? And these type A personality clients that demand instant answers, screw them. I'm sorry, you know? You get to a certain point in life. Any other questions?
Charlie, we have our Mechanics Institute students in the audience, and I would like to ask you what would you advise them and what you would wish our students?
Say it once more.
What would you advise Mechanics Institute students who are here today in the audience?
Okay. Learn to communicate. It's not about your technical skills. It's about communication skills. Get good at CAD. I'm really pleased at what's going on here with the BIM program. It's fabulous. It's all about technology. It's all about BIM. It's all about Lean. It's all about Six Sigma. It's all about supply chain just-in-time delivery. There's so much stuff out there. And if you do it the old way, which is the old delivery process, which is design, build, design, bid, build, doesn't work anymore. It really doesn't work. Okay, the new world is IPD, IPD Light, design, build, design, assist. But communication skills. Why did Richard and I hire the best and the brightest out of Manhattan College, Princeton, Cooper Union, whatever? It wasn't because they had a 4.0 index. It wasn't because they had straight A's. It was because they had communication skills. That's the whole key. And people that get 4.0 indexes at MIT are only interested in grades. They're not interested in understanding the essence, the basic principles of physics and structural engineering. They're not, okay? And we don't hire, I never hired them, okay? We hired guys that hit the street from Manhattan College like Tom Scarangello, Bob DeCenza from Cooper Union. Just think about all the people we hired. They were communicators that could basically enable me to introduce them to a client and then move on to getting the next client, and they took care of that client. That's the whole essence. And the insecure manager of an engineering firm who thinks they're the only ones that can do it, or a construction company that no one can do it as well as me, they're dead. Because the next generation are communicators and technology specialists. That's where it is. Yeah, I mean, that's what ACE is about. ACE teaches communication. Got to get involved in ACE. If anybody in this room is not involved in ACE and you don't get involved, I'm going to get you. Richard knows me. Richard.
Charlie, my name is Rodney Crumrine. We worked together in the early 90s on New York Hospital Project.
Yep.
And one of the finest relationships I ever had was with your engineer, Anya Brazel. And I guess I'd like to see from your perspective how your profession has changed, or the design industry has changed as women become more active and more active in leadership roles. And could you talk a little bit about how that has worked with Thornton Tomasetti in particular?
Has Ken Hiller arrived? Ken Hiller was with Larry McGovern on that project. New York Hospital was an inspirational project for one reason. We had a guy named, I'll think of his name in a minute, from New York Hospital. Fritz Reuter. Unbelievable. Read the article in Engineering News Record about Fritz Reuter. He enabled the mechanical, the electrical, the plumbing, the fire protection, the structural, all of the major trades. Were you involved, Al? Yes. It was fabulous, okay? And at the end of the article, after we lifted those things off the barges and put them in overnight, for every night for X number of nights, Fritz said, the team won. It wasn't about the hospital winning. It wasn't about some, asshole owner screwing everybody. It was about the team winning. Everybody wins. And there's too many owners now. I used to participate in CURT, Construction Users Roundtable. They were all owners of large corporations like DuPont. They didn't give a shit about anybody except themselves. And this industry has to get together and come up with this collaborative, communicative delivery process, which is called design, assist, design, build. IPD, that's okay, but it's the way to win. Design, bid, build sucks. It does. Yankee Stadium with Turner, Tishman Speyer, was design assist. Skanska, people here from Skanska, Yankees, Jets Giants, was a winner. Everybody wins when everybody makes some money. Does that answer your question? No, it doesn't. Okay, what's your question? She's unbelievable.
Charlie, please tell everybody how great women engineers are.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry, I didn't get it. Anya Brazel is vice chairman of Thornton Tomasetti. She is dynamite. Before her, we had Fruma Narav, who was dynamite. Okay? Thornton Tomasetti's staff is now 35% women? It's about 35% women. Why? They're smarter than men. They do better in college than men. They work harder. And they're great. And our women clients want to see women engineers. So we hire a lot of women. I mean, really. Always did. We had an ice cream party a couple of years ago in July, and there was an ice cream thing in the office. And the announcement was made that it was a hot, humid day, that there was ice cream, and I was there, and I had been sort of, quote, retired, and I couldn't believe these women. The thing, there were just all these women. I said, where do these people come from? They were all engineers. Fabulous, awesome. So, I mean, we really go out of our way to hire bright and good. It's all about communication. Our network is professors from the great universities like Purdue and Cornell, and they will call us and tell us, I got 2 or 3 coming down the pike that are the best and the brightest in the industry. And the minute I get that name and that resume, I send them to the Chicago office, I send them to the New York. I still do that all the time. I do a lot of recruiting for the company. Because it's all about people that can communicate. That frees up Anya Brazel to move on. Anything else?
Hi, Charlie. Excuse my British accent. I've got an old videotape, BSF videotape from 88, 89, Channel 4 in England. And when I was doing my structures degree, it was very inspiring. You were in it, high-rise buildings, people like Helmut Jahn, Leslie Robertson, and other ones. And I always remember you on your boat and talking about high-rise and making analogies. Could you tell us a little bit about the making of that and how you got involved? And it inspired me, and 20 or 25 years later, I'm with TT, so I'm very lucky.
Was this with Carl Sabah and the skyscraper? This is a great story. Carl Sabah comes to New York, and he wants to do 4 events, 4 videos on Zeckendorf Towers. And he does 4, and then he contacts me and Richard and says, I want to do one on generic skyscrapers. And I convinced him that vortex shedding and wind loads on tall buildings was related to sailing. And we got him on the boat. And once you get him on the boat, you got him hooked. You're going to make it through the cutting room floor. That's the one you're talking about, right? And it's a great story because Richard and I were sailing out of Stanford Yacht Club. There's this huge storm coming in. They're anxious to complete the filming. And I'm saying, we got to get out of here. This is horrible. We go in and pick up a mooring. We go down below with Carl and his team. We drink a few beers. We finish the storm, and we go back out. And I got them looking over the stern, and they're seeing vortex shedding. And they're understanding the whole process of what happens to tall buildings and wind. That's what we did. It was great. I still have copies of it. There's a book called he wrote a book called Skyscraper. And it's really interesting because I'm going through it right now on a project in India. And Lara McGovern, when they won the Petronas Towers, they sent a guy from New York over, one of these typical New Yorkers, and I love them, who always tell the truth. Well, the Malaysian bureaucracy on Petronas Towers didn't want to hear the truth. They sent them back in 3 weeks. And then they found a guy named Bruce Schleitzer, who was a diplomat. And working that climate, you need to have a diplomat who can communicate and not always tell the client the total truth. Richard opened China for us. You went through the same thing with Dennis Poon. It was just marvelous. And the whole experience in 91 of really expanding into the world's tallest buildings in Taipei 101, which Richard actually handled with Dennis Poon, and I handled the Petronas, was just a cultural experience to expand my horizons about multiculturalism and understanding Muslim and Islamic architecture. It was fabulous. It was great. So we all grow.
Could you tell us, this is really a question and a request, why ACE is so important and why you have so much invested in it?
The American high schools are overwhelmed, and they can't address an industry because they don't understand an industry. And this industry is the American construction industry. The guidance counselors still think engineers drive trains. You know, they hear the term architecture about software and Microsoft. Our words have been sort of pirated. What ACE does is, and it's very successful, we have a new executive director named Jack Kay. He's down in Washington. What ACE does is, and I'll tell you a story right now. I go to get a new cell phone last week, and I'm in Verizon in the middle of Easton, Maryland, and this young man, who's about 23, takes down all my information, and he says, "You're Charlie Thornton. I was in your ACE program in St. Michael's, Maryland. The $3,000 scholarship you gave me was my ticket to Virginia Tech. Without that $3,000, I would not have gone to Virginia Tech." He's now going to start mentoring in September in Easton, Maryland, where I live. It's a game changer. The schools cannot, Salvadori does a fabulous job with middle school. But then the kids get into high school, and ACE, basically, and Richard knows, Richard Anderson knows, you got to track these kids. So it's in 400 communities. And I went to Chicago last week, 2 weeks ago, and I attended the ACE luncheon, and Thornton Tomasetti was all over that luncheon, as was Arup and all the other firms. And there were 700 people at this ACE luncheon, and they grossed $260,000 for scholarships. And at the end of the Fazihan, at the end of the video that they did, and her son, Andrew, did part of the video, they had 15 people go, "Thank you, Dr. Thornton. Thank you, Dr. Thornton. Thank you, Dr. Thornton. Thank you, Dr. Thornton." And I actually admit I got emotional. It's absolutely cool. These kids, these students, we have 98% of the kids, plus or minus, graduate high school, and 79% graduate architecture, engineering, construction. If you go on the website and you look at the statistics, some awesome percentage of Hispanic students who enter architecture come out of the ACE program, mainly because of Los Angeles. There's probably 800 kids in the program in LA. Who's here from ACE New York? Okay, Milo Reverso is trying to get 1,000 students. Where do you stand? How much? About 1,000. Is that Annika? Nice to see you, Annika. Go talk to Annika about New York. She does a great job. My daughter Diana back there is the Northeast Regional Coordinator. You want to talk a little bit about what happened at Thornton Tomasetti a couple of weeks ago, which I just found out about, the regional meeting? Oh, weren't you there? Right.
What we have done is we realized that ACE, while it's extremely different in each city, there is a lot of sharing that goes on between the cities. And with 1,000 kids in New York, DC's got 300, Philly's got 300. We all got together and talked about what works well for you, what doesn't work well, because the goal is, what'd I do? New York wants to hit 1,500, Philly wants to hit 500, DC would like to be at 600. We really shared a lot about what we are doing, and what we found over and over again from all the affiliates is that once the kids get in our program, they are hooked. And we just hear the most amazing testimonials. And the thing we hear from the students over and over again is, it's just nice to have someone care. I mean, that sounds so simplistic, but a lot of these kids have no one in their life that is telling them that, yes, you can do this, yes, you can go to college or trade school, or we just hear it over and over again. The kids are just thrilled that adults are taking the time to pay attention to them and just helping them and believing in them. So.
It's booming. It's absolutely booming. And guess what? The construction industry, thank God, is booming. Boston's inflation is out of control again. A project that Avalon Bay was doing in 2012 was $264 a square foot for rental residential. In 2014, it was not $264, it was $364. That's $100 a square foot in 2 years. That's out of control inflation. And one of the reasons is they don't have anybody to build the buildings. The ironworkers of America, Walter Wise, is going to finance projects that we're doing because they want to bring steel into residential construction. So I mean, this is a sea change. I don't have my finger on the pulse in New York, but Richard left. But you know, open shop versus on private jobs. I mean, a lot of it's open shop now, right? 50%? Yeah. So we don't care, open shop union. We just want high school kids to join this industry and get really good jobs and make some money and become great citizens.
This kind of stuff.
The question is ASCE? Yes. I started ACE because of ASCE. They wanted me to go out and recruit civil engineers. You can't go into high schools and recruit civil engineers. You got to go out and recruit people for the construction industry and let them make their choice. Okay? ASCE does not support us at all because they got a bunch of silos. I have no use for ASCE, sorry. I don't. If people are not going to support ACE and they're going to build a silo within their organization of a bunch of goddamn bureaucrats, which is what ASCE is all about, I want nothing to do with them. I'm sorry, I'm outspoken. But that's how I got where I am, my friend. You won't get there with the present management in Washington. Pat Natale has just retired. They give us zip, nada, nothing. They don't give us a cent. They drove me to form ACE. Ed Cohen used to have me go to high schools to do 1,500-person groups at high schools to proselytize New York City high school students to become civil engineers. Waste of time. Absolute zero waste of time. You got to get down to the Salvadori, you got to get down to the middle school level, and then you got to get the kids interested in an industry, not civil engineering.
What about the civil engineering
Waste of time. I'm sorry. I got here because of what I do, which is I state what I believe. If you disagree with me, fine. I don't give a shit. I don't care.
Charlie, as one of the ACE mentors in this room, I just wanted to say thank you so much for founding the ACE mentoring program. It's wonderful. I still remember the first time I met you in an ACE dinner in San Diego back in 2004 with Tracy Martin, who worked in the Padres Stadium with Thornton Tomasetti. And since then, it's been an amazing journey. I have a simple question, and I think I know the response. You're going to say, talk to your daughter. How can my students of Team 26 meet you personally at an intimate level? I would love for you to show up in the office one Monday and just surprise them and just show them exactly how it's done.
Invite me.
Thank you. Thank you.
Richard, I haven't changed. And I don't intend to. He stopped trying. Any others? How are we doing time-wise?
Thanks for coming out, Charlie. I started in the bridge business, you're vertical, and I started in '86 with a company, Steinman, Boynton, Grindquist, and Birdsall, which I really enjoyed the atmosphere of it in being a partnership. It was 4 partners and 200 employees and, worldwide portfolio. The bridge business industry has changed. It's gotten very corporate now, and it's just, a lot of pressures on the project manager, and you don't have as much flexibility as you used to. And I'm wondering with the buildings, is that happening with that, or to a lesser effect? And I mean, you're at the cream, you're the higher end of the clients, of course, but going forward, how do you see the industry is going to be for future engineers going to these, the cream structures? Like,
yeah. The bridge and horizontal business is slow pay. And one of my startups, which is still going on with Tom Wynant and Alan Geary, who are here, didn't quite make it Stram because we just couldn't meet payroll because it takes forever to get paid in the horizontal infrastructure business. Buildings are better. You got clients like Boston Properties, and the schedules on these projects are driven by income, whereas infrastructure is not driven by income. It's just based upon whatever the Highway Trust Fund and gas taxes. So I don't think it's changing private sector construction. Richard, I don't think so. It's still the same. You hire an engineer, you hire an architect, you hire a construction manager, and you do the job ASAP, and you make some money on it, and you get paid as you do the work. Is that the way it still is? As far as I'm concerned, it is. With a good client. With a good client, like Boston Properties.
There is a lot of similarities with, building large structure, bridge structure in wind sailing, that you have that as far in building besides, vertical shedding, vortex, and that, the dynamics of a large span, there is a lot of relation with that.
Oh, absolutely, and the integration of engineering and constructability and all that stuff is what Thornton Tomasetti did on long span arenas and roofs, and the really good bridge engineers do that, but it's all going design build, I think, P3. Right. It should all go P3.
I think
get the DOTs out of the picture.
Well,
sorry, DOTers.
I see a project as you're going on a voyage, and if you have the right people on that project on the ship, it's going to have the right success. So there's a lot of similarities that way too.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, when you look at the Petronas Towers, that was a 12 million square foot project for an oil company. The first contract they sent to Pelly Clark Pelly was a design contract for an oil rig. And we looked at him and we said, these people don't understand what they're doing. Larry McGovern and Larry McGovern Bovis and those guys went in there, and it was American technology. It was Thornton Tomasetti, it was Cesar Pelli, it was Flack and Kurtz, and it was Larry McGovern Bovis, and they basically showed the Malaysians how to build a building a floor every 2 days instead of a floor every 14 days. And that's what American entrepreneurship and engineering has to offer overseas. And we've seen it, okay? The Brits can't get out of their own way. The Chinese can't get out of their own way. They're all trying to save face. They don't want to make a mistake. They over-design the hell out of everything. There's a real market overseas for really great American design firms. It really is. And Thornton Tomasetti's got how many, I don't know how many tall buildings they have in Asia. They got, Dennis Poon has taken Asia by storm. Yeah. No, and the reason is the British firms and the French firms, they can't compete with us because they will not get out of the box. So get off your you-know-whats and get out there. That's what you got to do. I took Petronas. Richard took China. He had a harder job.
The title of the book, could you tell the audience, how did you come to call it A Life of Elegant Solutions?
Where's Carolyn? We bought our first boat, a CNC 25. And I said to her, what are we going to call it? And she said, you know, in marketing and business development, if you develop a really great algorithm, it's called an elegant solution. And I said, let's just call this little 25-foot CNC Elegant Solution 1. Then we went on to Elegant Solution 2, which was the Tartan 37, which a lot of these people have been on. And then came the Tartan 4100, which was Elegant Solution 3rd. And Elegant Solution, and I encourage everyone to buy the book, Elegant Solutions. It's a fabulous book. And the first elegant solution in the book is the paperclip. And there's this famous joke, first told by Robert Liss, our really good friend, who passed away a couple of years ago. It's about the thermos bottle. And he goes, so there were these three guys. There was an American, there was a Brit, and there was an Eastern European. I'm not going to mention any ethnicity. And the American says the greatest invention was the telephone, because we can now communicate. The Brit says, no, it was the airplane, because we could now communicate. And this Eastern European says, no, it was the thermos bottle. And this is in the opening of this book, Elegant Solutions. And the two guys, the American and the Brit, say, how so? He says, well, you put hot stuff in it, it stays hot. You put cold stuff in it, it stays cold. How does it know? Remember? It's a great joke. Elegant Solutions. Read the book. It's about the Golden Gate Bridge and the Bay Bridge, the Oakland Bay Bridge. The Golden Gate Bridge, designed by Ellis and an architect who studied the sunsets. The Golden Gate Bridge is a masterpiece. The Oakland Bay Bridge is a piece of junk. The Golden Gate Bridge is an elegant solution, opening in the book. So that's Elegant Solutions. And Richard and I and the Thornton Tomasetti team continue to produce only elegant solutions. I'm getting a plaque?
Of course. So, Charlie, first of all, thank you for being here this evening. It really means a lot to have you back in this space. And speaking about your father, we do have his graduation program for you, as well as his annual report. And I just want to say that my own father's picture, as Charlie knows, sits right next to Charlie's dad. So when I introduce people to my father, right next to him I say, do you know that's Charlie Thornton's dad of Thornton Tomasetti? So he meets an awful lot of people here at the society. So, and thank you. And on behalf of the General Society of Mechanics and Tradesmen, on the occasion of your presentation and book signing for your memoir, Charles H. Thornton, A Life of Elegant Solutions, we thank you.
Enjoy the book.